Okay, today we're going to look at Chapter 11, Topic 10, which is coterminal angles. So two angles in standard position that have the same terminal side. Okay, so these would be called coterminal angles. So these are two angles in standard position that have the same terminal side. An example of this would be 135 degrees and negative 225 degrees, okay? Because if we look at the angle if we look at the angle 135 degrees, which is right here, okay, it goes up to 90, goes around to 135. This is going to have a reference angle. The reference angle is going to help us out here. So this has a reference angle of, 180 minus 135, of 45 degrees. Okay, so if we wanted to know, so that's this angle right here. Okay, that's 135 degrees. But the other angle that would have the same terminal side, or another angle that would have the same terminal side, would be the one that goes around this way, the negative one. So it would go around negative 180 degrees, and then go around negative 45 degrees more. So negative 180 plus negative 45 gives us negative 225. So this one goes around negative 225 degrees. So these are the same. These have the same terminal side. These are coterminal. Okay? 135 degrees and negative 225 degrees are both this line right here. And there are other ones as well. Now you can find more angles that are coterminal by adding and subtracting 360 degrees. Okay, this will give you an infinite number of coterminal angles, because if you have a coterminal angle like this one, 135 degrees, and then you go around another complete circle, 360 degrees, then you'll get back here as well. Okay, same thing if you go in the opposite direction. If you subtract 360 degrees, you would go in the reverse circle and end up here. Okay, so you can add or subtract 360 to find coterminal angles. Okay, so not only would negative 225 be a coterminal angle, that's from subtracting 360, you could add 360 and end up here as well, and that would give you 495. So these all have the same terminal side, all these angles. So find one angle with a positive measure and one angle with a negative measure that are coterminal with the given angle. Okay, well that's easy enough. I can find one with a positive side, or with a positive measure, by adding 360 to this. So 210 plus 360 would be 570. So the positive one would be 570 degrees. The negative one I could find by subtracting 360 from 210. So negative 150 degrees would also have that terminal side. Now negative 740, we want one with a positive measure and one with a negative measure. Well, I can find another negative measure by just adding 360 to negative 740. So negative 740 plus 360 is negative 380 degrees. Okay, but I also want a positive one. So I could add 360 again, but that gives me negative 20, okay, which is still negative. So I'm going to have to add 360 again, which will give me positive 340 degrees. And negative 15. So a positive and a negative measure. Okay, well if I want a negative measure, I can subtract 360. Okay, so negative 15 minus 360, which is negative 375. And if I want a positive measure, I would have to add 360. So adding 360 gives me positive 340 degrees. So for each one of these, I have a coterminal angle that has positive and negative measure. Now we can also do the same thing for radians, okay? So we can also find coterminal angles that are in radians. So the radian, of course, is the measure of an angle in standard position whose terminal side intercepts an arc of length r, or of that radian. Of that measure. So in the unit circle, the radius is 1 because the circumference is 2 pi r, so there are 2 pi radians in a full circle. At 360 degrees is the same as 2 pi radians, and 180 degrees is the same as a single pi radian. So, coterminal angles in radians. Find one angle with positive measure and one angle with negative measure that are coterminal. So we'll find a positive one and a negative one. Now this is actually the same thing, just like we added or subtracted 360. Well, that's a full circle. We're also going to be adding or subtracting a full circle, but remember a full circle would be 2 pi. Okay, so a positive one, so 3 pi over 5, I would want to add 2 pi. Okay, so I would do 3 pi over 5 plus 2 pi. Okay, well, you can't add these because we have a denominator of 5. So let me just make this with a denominator of 5. So 10 pi over 5 is the same as 2 pi. Okay, because 10 over 5 is 2. So this would be 13 pi over 5 for the positive. Now for the negative, I would want to subtract 2 pi. So for the negative, I'm going to subtract 10 pi over 5. Okay, so 3 minus 10, that's negative 7 pi over 5. Okay, so I have a positive and a negative angle that are coterminal with 3 pi over 5. Alright, now I have negative 4 pi over 3, okay, and I want a positive and I want a negative that are coterminal. So I will add a full circle. So negative 4 pi over 3 plus 6 pi over 3, because that's 2 pi, okay, but I need a common denominator. So negative 4 pi plus 6 pi is 2 pi, so 2 pi over 3 for my positive. For my negative, I will subtract 2 pi, so I will subtract 6 pi over 3, which is 2 pi. So I get negative 10 pi over 3. And those are two coterminal angles in radians.